We're already
I didn't
recording,
get a
so
chance.
what's that?
I didn't get a chance to look at the YSL trial.
Yeah, no worries. I'm gonna when I generate the question, I'm gonna ask you a question, and I would love your generalization of it.
Okay.
So we're gonna go through it and then go from there. I'm at an event, so as I ask you questions, I might go mute, but I'm listening. And if I need to ask a different question, I'm gonna jump back on and unmute and kind of interject a little bit. Okay.
There we go.
All right. All right. Let's do it like this. Okay, let me just go and do an introduction, man. Once again, real life street stars. We are back once again with attorney Larry Taylor, the real life lawyer, where the real life lawyer reacts to things that's going on, things that's happening, and we're going to talk about a few things if y'all don't mind. Larry, if you don't mind, can you reintroduce yourself for those who still may not know who you are, everything that you do, and your contribution to the community and to the world, Craig?
Well, thank you very much. My name is attorney Larry Taylor. I'm the managing partner for the Johnny Cochran Law Firm in Texas and Oklahoma and New Mexico. And I am the Instagram Larry Taylor real life lawyer, and the founder of tailormadelaw.com.
Okay, definitely. Thank you, man. Let's go and get right into it. I know the fans are wanting to understand a couple of things that's happening, of course, in the world, and we're gonna, of course, react to a few things we may have seen, especially in the past week, that has gone on. And we want to definitely get a lawyer and attorney's take on it. And I want to start off by just first and foremost asking you about the Miami Dolphins wide receiver Tyreek Hill, the situation. Of course, you have some video from a bystander, and now the body cam footage has come across to where we've heard that, of course, Miami-Dade police officers have been, of course, suspended with pay, I guess, or maybe without pay. And this is an internal investigation of what's going on. First and foremost, have you seen the incident with Tyreek Hill? And if you don't mind, from an attorney standpoint, can you tell us as far as legally what's going on there? Who's in the right? Who's in the wrong? Is there a suit available if Tyreek wants to pursue a suit? Should the police officers be reinstated? Did they act accordingly? Just give us your take, and also again, if you've seen it, and kind of just walk us through what happened.
Okay. And so, Joker, you asked some real tough questions. I mean, they were spot on, but they're extremely tough questions. In the video, you see Tyreek sitting in his car, and he's doing what we've seen many of us who have friends who don't necessarily have the same type of melon complexion. We've seen them do similar things without the same consequences. And Tyreek basically said, man, give me my ticket and let me move on. And so at that point, you can see the officer get aggravated. Tyreek rolls up his window. Officer asks him to roll his window down. He rolls it down partly. He's basically still saying, hey, man, write me my ticket. And to be honest with you, I think it was probably a little fear in that, because we've seen too many videos in which black men have been sitting in their cars and have been shot in that exact same position. And so you have another officer comes up, basically forces the car door open, pulls him out, throws him to the ground, and then there's still some verbal back and forth from there. So going through your points, right? The first one is who is right and who is wrong. I'll leave that to the public to decide. But personally, I feel that he should have gotten his ticket and been allowed to move on, because there was really no other reason other than to detain him, other than the fact that you didn't like his tone. You didn't like the way that Tyreek asked you to give him his ticket. You didn't like the way that he didn't necessarily respond to you. And so that's not a reason to arrest someone. That's not a reason to harass someone, right? You don't get to have that ability to do that just because you wear a badge. And so the officer could have easily de-escalated the situation and handed him a ticket and allowed him to move on, because there were no other laws being broken. And so going from there, and Joker, we talked about this my first interview. Basically, as a person of color, male or female, get home. Fight the fight in the courtroom. Do not let the situation get to a point where you could potentially lose your life. Here we have a potential Hall of Fame athlete that we could have lost because of personalities. And I get it. He probably was frustrated, probably late to warm ups or stretches or whatever he needs to do to prepare for the game that he had that day. But think about it. Get home, get back home to your children, get back home to your wife, get back home to your fans so that they can see you play, and try not to escalate or upset them to a point. And if he felt that he was mistreated, Tyreek could have easily filed a complaint after the fact, or asked Allen or his agent to go through that process or help him go through that process and file a complaint on that officer. When you file a complaint on an officer, typically it stays in their record and it affects their ability to get promotions and other things, especially if they have a number of them in their file. And so you
Very good
asked
to know.
me the last part of that, you asked me about a lawsuit. I don't think that this is going to rise to the level of a lawsuit simply because of how the situation went down. And usually on what we call 1983s or civil rights claims, the courts typically look for major injuries, if not death. And so here you have basically maybe some scratches and some bruises, but still in a violation of his civil rights. But does it arise to a level in federal court to allow him to potentially receive monetary? And then what is that monetary um, punishment or reward? And so I don't think it's going to arise to that, because I don't think the Dolphins want that to continue. I think basically they're hoping to either have that officer removed from that beat, get him away from the stadium, all the officers involved in that, send them to another part of Miami-Dade, and either fire them or demote them. But definitely those officers need some training.
All right, so I want to ask you. We're going to kind of delve into this a little bit. You asked as far as what a suit can be against. Of course, a bystander drives by and says, "Oh snap! It's Tyreek Hill. He's handcuffed." Um, just from your understanding of it, is that possible pain and suffering for you to be a Hall of Fame athlete, getting handcuffed, put on the floor? Let's say if it's wrongfully, if it is considered wrongfully for them to detain him right then and there, does he have pain and suffering? Can he pursue based on him being a high profile athlete, being shamed in front of fans, so to speak?
Out of respect for this litigation and my fellow lawyers who do civil rights cases, we're going to stay away from the aspect of what would be needed to do that. Is it possible? Yes. Um, you would have to jump through certain hurdles in order to get that past summary judgment. But most of these cases are dismissed. I mean, there are cases in which during, uh, the George Floyd's protests in which people were injured, and those cases were dismissed. And so, people were hit with rubber bullets, and people who were subjected to tear gas. And so you have to be very careful. And you, as a lawyer dealing with those cases, you have to make sure that they're aligned. We're one of myself and my co-counsel are one of the first to actually have an officer in Harris County prosecuted for shooting our client. And we've just made it through summary judgment. And so that means that the case is basically set and ready to go to trial if we don't get what we feel to be a fair settlement for our client.
Understandable. So let me ask you. Of course, I didn't hear Tyreek say, "Hey, I am Tyreek Hill of the Miami Dolphins, heading to a game right now." He didn't use that in his favor. Do you think he should have maybe played into that to let the officer know who he is and what's going on? So therefore, because again, it's psychological warfare. Should he have made mention, or should he have just stayed a regular citizen in that moment to say, "Hey, let me just see how this plays out"?
So let me just be honest with you, man. It's this the fact that if he would have done that, it would have been used against him. And so this is the part where we're going to get all the comments. Police departments only release videos when it's in their favor. What did they say? Hey, we usually don't release these videos this quick, but here you go.
Right.
Right? And so law enforcement doesn't release videos unless it's in their favor, especially this quick. Or should I say they don't like to? Some jurisdictions, there are policies and procedures in which law enforcement has so many days in order to release it. And then, if you're dealing with a state like Texas, basically you have to go to heaven and hell in order to get permission to get the video for law enforcement or from any governmental agency.
Understandable. Geez, yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Again, these were motorcycle cops, not the average cops. And this is Miami-Dade, and you're pulling up. I'm sure they see Lamborghinis, Ferraris all the time. Those doors open, like scissor doors, basically butterfly doors, as you say. Um, technically, what is a and again, this is for the young men out there who are riding around. What is a man's rights? And again, I know every county is different, every state is different. What is a man's rights when a police officer pulls him over for a speeding ticket? Of what should he just adhere to everything the police says, or does he have rights to say no? I will not wind my window down. I will not open my door. I will not approve to search and seizure. What just and kind of you don't have to go through the detail. I know it's different, but kind of just give us an overall flow of what is a man's rights if he knows his rights.
And so let's talk about something different. Rights versus appearance and what you would be able to need to prove in court. The issue is the more defiant you are, the more of a risk you have that juror who says basically what the police department said. Matter of fact, Stephen A said it also, is that he didn't comply. He didn't comply at the first request. He didn't reply allegedly at the second request, leaving the officer to get upset and act outside of what he was probably supposed to do. And so you have to think about that. Everything that you do is a breadcrumb to either your success or your failure in life. So I think I talked about it last time. Man, hand them the driver's license, leave the window down, sit there, kindly say, hey, I am I would like to have my ticket as soon as possible so I can continue my day. If they ask you what you have to do or where you're going, say, sir, all I want is my ticket. The law does not require me to tell you my designation or where I came from. If I broke a traffic law, please write me a citation for it so that I can move on. Now, if you do that and they drag you out your car because you didn't respond and you didn't do that, now you pretty much have everyone on your side. You have everyone, even people who normally would be Blue Lives Matter, would be constitutionally challenged to say, okay, you know what? That's what I would have done. I wouldn't have wanted to tell him where I was going. So what? It's none of his business that I'm going to my girlfriend's, my mom's, I'm going to see my kid in the hospital. That is none of his business. What he needs to do is do his job or her job, which is to write me a citation and let me go on.
Okay, so with that being said, I want to ask two more questions in this regard. As Tyreek did a post, he played the game. I forgot if the Dolphins won, but I remember he scored a touchdown. He
They
uh, he
won.
okay, they won. All right, just making sure they won. He scored a touchdown, imitating like he got handcuffed. One of his players and one of his teammates came up, imitated as well. Tyreek did a post game conference where he stated, "I was with the utmost respect. I did not cuss out anybody. I didn't do any of that. I gave the guys much respect." Now, when you go back and watch the body cam, you can hear that he was using, I guess, what the people say is ebonics. He was calling the officers twin. Say twin, damn fam, those things like that. Just from your standpoint, should someone, let's say, speak in proper a tone, or can they use what is considered ebonics? Does that help them in their favor when they're having a language barrier with a police officer? Because I'm like, he's calling the man twin. Does that help him or not? Or does that even matter how you speak to a police officer?
So PSA, next topic that we'll do a short interview on what we call code switching. Code switching is the difference between talking how, like you're saying, the King's English, and talking how we talk in our neighborhood or at our home, and when we're more in a relaxed situation. And so I'm going to say this, and it might be popular and it might not be, but as African Americans, our language is that it is a form of English that resonates within the African American community, or better yet, the urban community. And just because he's talking in that language does not give someone the right to throw you down and dehumanize you. No different than it does if someone who only spoke Spanish or spoke another language and they use that language. So I am totally, and it's my personal opinion, and I know I'm probably going to get, some backlash behind it, but look, man, everyone has a right to use their dialect. The officers understood it. He didn't curse. Hey, fam, damn, fam. I mean, that's not offensive. And if I need to talk to you in such a way um, that you feel comfortable not hitting me, that's problematic. So the difference between that, I get paid to do that. I get paid to code switch, right? When I'm before a jury or I'm before, uh, a judge, and I'm going through the facts of the law, I'm talking in a way that is necessary at that particular point. But at the same time, that is the language of the court. These just everyday people.
Understandable. All right. So technically, the last thing I want to ask in this regard was Odell Beckham had pulled up, and a couple other teammates. They had pulled up and started recording as well. Officers start telling them, "Hey, please get back." What is someone's rights to technically record a situation in which they feel like something wrong is happening, or they just want to have record of, like, let me record this. What do they have to the officer to, like, not record, turn the cell phone off or get back, what, just kind of walk us through that as far as what someone should do if they see something wrong happening and they want to pull their cell phones out.
So you should know the rules within your jurisdiction. I know, and I vaguely remember the governor of Florida trying to pass legislation that would prevent bystanders from actually recording. But typically, as long as you're within so many feet away from the incident in which an officer cannot articulate that they felt threatened, you can record. And matter of fact, I suggest that you do record, because those recordings have brought justice to some families, or should I say,
Understood.
have gotten justice for some families.
Shout out RealLyfe Street Stars, nigga.